Hey, if you're looking to start an occupational therapy clinic and you need a set of financial projections for a potential investor or lender, or maybe you're trying to get an SBA loan and they've asked you for a set of projections, then you've come to the right place because we have put together a financial projection template here that's built specifically for occupational therapy practices. And I'm going to walk you through how to fill the template out and how to use it really step by step. I'm also going to put a link in the description of the video below to this template so that you can grab that and follow along. And if you stick around to the end of the video, as a thank you for sticking around all the way to the end, I'm going to give you access to a coupon code that you can use to take a discount on this particular template as our thank you to you. So a little bit before I dive into the details of how this template works, just a little bit of background on me. My name's Adam Hoeksema. I'm the co-founder of ProjectionHub. And before starting ProjectionHub, I was an SBA lender. We made over 1,500 SBA loans during my 12 years as the executive director of a SBA lender called Bankable. And so I really come to this process of creating financial projections with a lender's perspective and make sure that we help our clients put their best foot forward when they are applying for an SBA loan with our projection template. So if you go through this process and you realize, hey, I just want somebody to fill this out for me, feel free to reach out to us at support@projectionhub.com. and we can help with that. We have a template fill out service where we can do that for you and fill the model out, customize it based on your specific plan. So if you're feeling a little overwhelmed or just want us to take care of it, let us know. We're happy to help with that. All right, let's go ahead and dive into how this template works. Okay, so I am on the At a Glance tab, and this is kind of the end of the process. So after you have completed all of the assumptions tabs on the projection spreadsheet, this is where you're going to get a at a glance with a couple of different charts and graphs and tables, key ratios, and summary data. You're also going to get a 5-year income statement summary, 5-year cash flow summary, a 5-year balance sheet, and then the income statement and cash flow all broken down by month for each of the 5 years. So that's going to give you everything that you would need to present to an SBA lender. All right, in order to produce these reports, though, we have a little bit of work to do, and so we're going to come back here to our Input Assumptions tab. Now, the first thing you need to know is that any cell that's highlighted in light blue is an assumption that you can change without breaking anything in the model. So you can set your company name, your projection start month. In this example, we're going to assume that this is a startup occupational therapy clinic and that you are an occupational therapist yourself, and that you're going to pay yourself maybe some base minimum salary, and then maybe over time you'll add in other employees as well. And so that's kind of the assumption we have as we fill this out. And so I'll just kind of walk you through it here. So we're going to assume here that you are going to invest $20,000 personally. And then on the accounts payable side, this just means when are you going to pay your bills. So we're assuming that you're going to pay 80% of your bills in the month you incur the expense, 20% in the following month on a 1-month delay. So you can think about expenses that you might put on a credit card. Those would be an example of you incur the expense now when you swipe that credit card, but you don't actually have the cash outflow. You don't pay it until the following month. On the accounts receivable side, this is something that's pretty important. This is how fast you are going to get paid by your customers. So if you're billing to insurance or Medicare or Medicaid, they may take a little while to pay. And so here we can set the average number of days we think it's going to take to collect payment from our customers. So we're setting the initial average here at 30 days. Now, it's possible that, insurance or, some payers may take even longer than that, but maybe you also have some private pay customers that pay at time of service, right? And pay up front. So you might have some that pay on day one, some that pay in 45 days, and maybe the average is 30. Inventory, you don't really have any inventory here for this type of business, so we're just going to zero this out here. And then on the fixed asset side, let's assume you are going to lease an office and you need to do some office renovations. And so you've got $50,000 here for an office renovation, maybe $20,000 for initial equipment, $5,000 for some furniture. Then maybe you have a company vehicle as well, and so you've got that in here at $20,000. You can set the useful life, the years that you expect these different assets to be usable. And then the salvage cost is just what they're worth at the end of the useful life. Maybe you can sell the car for scrap for $2,000. So that's the idea there. And then what month you're going to purchase the asset. So we're going to say we're going to purchase these all in month 1. And then let's say we're looking for a SBA loan for $150,000 to help us with the startup costs as well as for working capital and just operating expenses during that first year as we're ramping up. So we've got a $150,000 loan at 11% interest over a 120-month term or a 10-year term. Okay, let's move on to the revenue tab. So on revenue, again, we're assuming you have no current patients. So we're going to say 0 for current patients. Let's say you have an advertising budget of $1,000 a month. And we're going to assume that the cost to acquire a new patient is $200. Now, this is something that you may or may not know. If you are working with a marketing company that is going to help you, do online advertising to try to acquire customers or patients, they may have some insight for you on what they would expect in terms of customer acquisition cost based on their experience. And so that could be a conversation with them. If you don't have any idea, I would just say don't rely too much on this assumption. And you probably want to think more about how you're going to get customers through this line item here, this organic sources, so like referrals and word of mouth, referrals from other doctors and that sort of thing. So we do have basically the idea here of if you're spending $1,000 a month in ads and it costs you $200 to acquire a patient, let me just zero that out, then you're going to bring in 5 new patients from paid ads per month. And let's say you also are going to bring in organic customers as well. And so we're going to say 5 new customers from referrals in the first 3 months, then going up to 10 for the next 6 months, and then up to 15 a month towards the end of the first year. And then it kind of levels out there, and we just assume a 3% annual growth rate from there in terms of bringing in new patients there. So we can also set a maximum number of patients here. If you said, I don't want it to exceed a certain level, we put a really high number because maybe if you had so many patients, you might just continue to hire therapists and you could continue to grow. We can also set an average patient relationship length here. So how long do we think, before these patients are, when we get a new referral, how long are they going to be a patient before they kind of cycle out or roll off? And so we set that to a year, but you could set that to 2 years. You could set it to 0.5 years if it's like 6 months on average. So then this will then calculate your number of active patients. From there, we can add our different services. So let's say we have these different visit types. Maybe one is just an initial evaluation that every new patient is going to have. It's going to be a $200 fee. Maybe there's some material costs, maybe some exercises or equipment that you have them utilize or activities that they go through. And so there could be some material costs to that. So that's what you'd want to put in here. And then we have a therapy session here. And so for the therapy session, we're going to say, let's say that's $150. And we can set this number here, this average services per patient per year. So what we're saying here is that the average active patient here is going to come 15 times a year for a therapy session. And then this last entry here is a reevaluation or reassessment. And we say once a year, every active patient is going to have a reevaluation or reassessment is the idea there. From there, we can set this percentage of fee reimbursed. So this might be kind of your sticker price, but then of course, Medicare, Medicaid, and insurance companies may not actually reimburse you the full amount that you would bill. And so we can set that percentage here. I've got that set to 70% of what is what you'd actually be paid and reimbursed. So then this calculates your total revenue. On the expense side, We have things like accounting here. We have $500 a month for accounting. We have things like credit card fees. So let's say you do have some private pay customers and they're paying with a credit or debit card, and you're going to have a credit card processing fee. You can set that as a percentage of revenue here, and then 0.02 means 2%. So that's how you'd enter in 2% of total revenue. And that way, as your revenue grows, your credit card processing fee would grow as well. And then you have insurance at 3%, rent, let's say that's $2,500. You'd enter in your own assumptions here. And then here we have a relatively big expense here, insurance billing service. So let's say you hire a third-party kind of insurance billing service, and they may charge you based on a percentage of revenue. And so we have that set to 6%, and that can vary depending on who you use, what exact services they're actually providing. All right, then let's look at our salaries tab. So this is our last input tab. And so the way I filled this out was assuming that you as an owner, we have you as an owner here, as an occupational therapist, you're going to make it a minimum salary of $60,000. So that's kind of, hey, this is the minimum I need to pay myself to get by. So I've got $60,000 in here, and employer taxes of 7.65%. For the benefits, we just usually put a default in there of 10% of the salary as benefits. You can adjust that. And then what month is this salary starting? So I have that starting in month 1, and then a 3% annual raise. Now, you are also going to get the profits of the business. So you're going to get if there are any profits, you're going to get the profits above and beyond your salary. So you don't necessarily need to apply a big raise if you want to earn more. I think you could basically just say, hey, this is my minimum salary that I'm going to take. And then obviously as the owner, any profits you're going to be able to do with as you wish. Now, I thought, okay, let's say after a year and a half, so after 18 months, we're going to hire another occupational therapist. So in month 19 here, so after a year and a half, we're going to hire another occupational therapist at $60,000 base salary. But then we have this little piece out here, this variable compensation structure. And so this is kind of tricky, but I think it's pretty useful for you to be able to utilize. So what we can say here is, what percentage of total revenue do we expect this employee to generate? So let's say it's you and this other therapist now. So the practice has 2 therapists. Let's say you both do 50% of the billable work. So this therapist is now responsible for 50% of the billable work. And then this variable compensation is a percentage of production. So let's say you agreed when you hired this employee, you said, I'll guarantee you I'll pay you $60,000, but I'll pay you 40% of your production with a $60,000 guarantee. So if production was only, $100,000, 40% of that would be $40,000 for the year. So you're still going to guarantee him the $60,000. But if production was, $200,000, then 40% of $200,000 would be $80,000. So they would actually make more than their annual minimum salary. So the way the model is working is it's going to see which number is bigger. Is their minimum salary bigger, or is their kind of percent of production larger? And it will pay them out whatever number is larger. So that's a way to kind of scale up as you bring on additional staff. And then we can also have an occupational therapy assistant here. Let's say we have an assistant, medical assistant type role here at $40,000. Maybe you're going to hire this person actually before you hire the full-time therapist to help you as you're growing. So maybe in month 13, the beginning of year 2, you bring on this assistant. And then you might want to consider, you could consider maybe we need a front desk worker. It kind of depends on whether you want to spend that or not, or whether you think that's necessary for your practice. But let's say you have a front desk staff and you're going to, let's just stick with kind of the same assumptions here. Perhaps we want this person, the front desk person, to start in month 6. So maybe you start just on your own, but as you start to get some patients, you realize you need some help at the front desk, and so maybe that's month 6 when you're able to hire. Okay, so all of that brings us here, and what we'll see is, we have a small net loss in the first year as we're ramping up, and so that's why we would need that loan to help cover those initial operating expenses. And so you'll notice that over time, as you grow, you get to this net income by the end of year 5 of $88,000. You have to remember that you're also paying yourself $60,000 as a base salary, so your income is really going to be more like the $60,000 plus the profit. Now, the other thing you'll want to check on is just take a look at this cash flow statement. So you want to make sure that after you've entered everything in, that look at this line, cash at the beginning of the period, and you want to make sure that that never goes below 0. If it goes below 0, you're out of money. So that's one thing I always like to just double check at the end of filling this out. Okay, so that is it. As a thank you again for sticking around to the very end, if you go into the video description below, you will find a link to a form. And if you click that form and fill the form out, we are going to email you our most up-to-date coupon code so you can take a discount on this particular template. And again, if you found this at all helpful, I'd love it if you like the video, subscribe to our channel so that we can continue to grow and continue to help more and more small businesses that are trying to create projections. So we appreciate your support, and again, reach out to us if you have any questions at all. Thanks.